7 o'clock, I'll call this common council meeting to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk call roll, please?
Brown? Here. Evans?
Here.
Moody's absent. Groton?
Here.
Merles? Here. Schuster?
Here. First item of business is approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Motion by Schuster.
Second.
Second by Grattan. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve minutes of previous meetings?
Second.
Motion by Brown, second by Rose. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve minutes of intervening meetings?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Grattan, second by Schuster. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public appearances. Somebody wishing to speak here tonight?
Asher Rosenberg, we're just here about the house on Juneau Avenue, the demolition yet. We were informed about Attorney Griggs working to locate Devon Shadows more to start the demolition, and we have with Jaws Demolition here to talk about it more, asking questions or answering any of your questions.
I guess we can fit you in under the public safety comment that's, or public safety portion of the meeting, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Communications, I have one. It's a thank you letter from the family of Jeffrey Neoff there. Jeff passed this about 2 weeks ago there, and he served on the Juneau Fire Department and the Juneau EMS for many years, so memorial was sent to him. And just a thank you. So I think it's a good thing for our city to recognize those kind of situations. So I have nothing. Anything from the clerk?
No.
Okay, approval of payments of bills. Checks for $1,191,606.12. No vouchers. Electronic transfers, $126,821.79. Is there a motion to approve the bills as printed?
I'll make that.
Motion by Grattan, second by Brown. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Groton?
Aye.
Brown? Aye. Evans?
Aye.
Merles? Aye. Schuster?
Aye.
Payments of bills have been approved. Reports of officials, mayor. The Oak Street and Highland Street projects are moving along. We've had a few issues, but nothing that we couldn't work through. I thank my superintendent and utility supervisors for keeping an eye on things, making sure things are going. There's a few things we're gonna have to be hashed out with MSA and the contractor on both projects, but right now we did make good as far as our deadline in regards to the monies that we received from the Community Block, CDG, yeah, CBDG loan. So, I mean, here's the case where, like I said, we were fighting a deadline and they went right to the final hour, to get that done, but I had Megan correspond with the officials, and they said as long as we were over the $700,000 that we were getting from them, which we were well into that already. Final coat of blacktop will come spring. The binder coat is down right now. All the driveway approaches are poured, and everybody's pretty much happy on that street. We got a few FUBAs along the way that, like I said, we'll be addressing. Other than that, any questions? I'd like to thank the firemen for assisting assisting the children in crossing for the trick-or-treating on Sunday. It's always a big help to make sure we got people out there watching the busy intersections. And I think you had just enough to cover the busy intersections, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on, clerk treasurer. Nothing to report?
No, just, I think everyone got their binders for budget. I did send out an email just verifying that. Some of you responded. Other than that, not much.
Any questions for the clerk? Okay, none, moving on. Any questions on the written reports? Building permit report, the police department report, Juneau Fire and Rescue report, or the Juneau EMS report? Any questions on any of those? Okay, moving on. Reports to committees, commissions, and boards. Library board. Okay, are you filling in for Jeanette?
Yeah, she said she couldn't be here tonight. I did attend the last library board meeting. I would say that we reviewed the budget, we talked about upcoming programming, and we spent a little time talking about our policy in a form about book challenges. You probably have heard that libraries, school libraries, local libraries, are receiving sometimes challenges on what books they might have, and so we reviewed our policy and our form, and we'll probably pass just an updated version of both at our next board meeting. But otherwise, all things are going well at the library.
Any questions for Kate? Moving on, plan commission.
We did meet. We discussed a minor land subdivision from the estate of Robert Getch on High Point Road. The farm was sold off and the buildings were sold separately. So they've got a 3-acre parcel roughly that the buildings are on. That's separate. So the county makes us aware of these changes so that they're within our 2-mile radius. We looked at Gene Miller's property line request at 298 North Highland Street. The property lines are crooked on his property, and so the driveway that goes to his back garage was on the neighbors. If they were to sell it off, the way it would match up, so they did a little triangle square up. So now the lot line's square to the world rather than crooked, and the neighbors are both happy with that. We discussed changes to the city ordinance. The verbiage of city ordinance 1208.100C was just saying that we could only have high pressure sodium fixtures. We changed it to allow us to have LED light fixtures, which are use less power. With different lighting, you can do some direct lighting or cast out, so we'll have to learn which ones we need to use. We did some property maintenance, and that was it for our meeting.
Just to clarify, the property lines on Highland run at an angle. They're not crooked. They run at an angle to the street, and that's where the positioning of the neighbor's driveway got confused. But it was fortunate that they had a working relationship, that they could quick claim the land that he needed, that he didn't have to move his driveway, so that he had acquired the land that his driveway sits on. And that extraterritorial jurisdiction, that's for the town of Oak Grove. That's for we have jurisdiction so that we don't be in a situation where we're essentially landlocked by somebody that would do something in their township. So that gives us the opportunity. It's usually a rubber stamp. It's usually like a subdivision of a farm or something like that. There's never been an issue with town of Oak Grove. Question for you, Andrew. Does every township, is it up to them what they classify for minimum acreage when they break off a piece from there? Or?
Yeah, well, they're supposed to set, it's supposed to be at least an acre for most of the townships.
Well, town of Oak Grove's always been 3 acres.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of curious, is that's something that they can accomplish within their town
Right.
board?
Right, they can.
Okay.
But the minimum lot size they have to have is at least an acre. A lot of them are 2 or 3 acres.
Yeah.
And then you've got extraterritorial zoning over anything within, usually it's a couple miles, and then you get to review it. And that's true of any time you have a city or a village abutting a municipality, there's the extraterritorial review you have. But like you said, most of the time you'd rubber stamp it, but if you had a plan where at some point Juneau was going to expand out a certain way, then you wouldn't necessarily want to approve what everybody does. Here it would be pretty routine with the Getch Fund.
Yep. Occasionally you run into that. town of Mayville and the village of Kikoski are still battling as far as deciding who Kikoski can tag aboard with and what have you, so, yeah.
Right,
It
and
does
some-
happen occasionally, I guess.
Sometimes what happens is the city and the town will reach a boundary agreement that'll set forth the parameters of what can get detached and attached to the city and what can be annexed, what can't be. A lot of municipalities have done that. You haven't had a problem, I don't think it's worth going down that road.
Right.
But eventually, if you have more development, that's something you would want to consider, and there's a lot of municipalities I've represented that have gone down that route.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Dave from Plan Commission? I did inform our police chief about the one premise that's
Downtown?
got living quarters against our city ordinances on the ground floor of our business district, so he is gonna look into that. So, moving on, Finance Committee, Cheryl.
We did meet. We had been working on the budget for this coming year, for 2023. There were some things that needed to be finalized and put together for this year. We ended up coming to agreement for the following resolutions, which cover the majority of what we did, and I think actually all of what we did. So, Resolution 39, 2022 approves city wage scale. Whereas the utility personnel, city personnel, and finance committees have reviewed an updated wage scale as shown in Exhibit A. Whereas utility personnel, city personnel, and finance committee have recommended the approval of the updated wage scale. And whereas the attached wage scale is hereby made effective January 1st, 2023 upon the recommendation of utility personnel, city personnel, and finance committees. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau the 8th day of November 2022. I move for passage of Resolution 39, 2022.
I'll second.
Motion by Brown, second by Morose. Further discussion.
This is a 5% increase across the board for our city employees for this coming year, unless under a contract that it leaves it to be different.
And that was the personnel committee recommended, 4 to 5%. And, we understand inflation was at 8 point something. We also understand the challenge of getting and maintaining employees. And there is some money in the budget of which we can give them 5%. So certainly as the personnel chair, I would very much support a 5% increase for our city crew. They work hard. I think they do a good job for our city. And inflation, it's hitting all of us. But, their paycheck is paying less for groceries now than it did before. So if the city is capable and able to pay 5%, certainly as personnel chair and as the committee, I believe we definitely support a 5% increase for our staff.
So the insurance went up, what, 2.5%?
Health
So
insurance?
that's a 7.5% raise.
Well, I don't think we base people's
it's-
wages on the cost of insurance.
Correct, but together, that's 7.5% increase in pay. They haven't helped us pay insurance for years. I mean,
Well-
whatever the boost was, the city usually absorbed all that.
So overall, it was a 2.63% across the table. So that's split between city and employee.
So,
I mean, the question is, what do you base staff wages on? I mean, I guess I've not heard that we base staff raises on what our insurance. Now, Brent, we were happy to see only a 2 point whatever raise. I mean, many places where health insurance went up 10%. So would you think if your insurance would go up 10%, would you say that we're giving them then a 15% raise because their health insurance went up 10%?
if the employee's not helping out,
Well,
not
the employee
taking a
has to
portion
pay,
of it.
the employee takes their share. We have an 80-20 split. So if insurance goes up 2.8%, then the employee also, their share went up because it's an 80-20 split. So they are being hit by insurance.
They went up
The same-
20% of that 2 point, what is it,
Yeah.
percent raise. They're
Yeah,
paying
so-
20% of
So they
the
are
2.8%.
paying higher insurance by that percentage with the split, which is part of the city policy, 80-20. So, go ahead.
I do think that in the future, as we continue through budgets and so on, it will have to be looked at if insurance continues to go up, of how that plays out, whether it's a higher deductible, whether it's co-pays, whether it's whatever, because that is a benefit that may be able to be manipulated, I guess is a word that could be used there, to make sure that it's still in compliance and that we are able to meet our obligations to our employees, but also to our city as a whole to be fiduciarily responsible.
Last year was the first full year that they had a deductible that they had to pay. Prior to that, they'd paid no deductible. So last year was the first year they had to pay their deductible.
A deductible or a portion of the,
They played.
They had a $0 deductible policy prior to last year. Last year is the first year that they've had to pay a deductible.
But they pay a deductible and the 20%.
did they pay the 20% last year?
Yeah, that was, this
That's always been that way?
No,
I don't-
20% has been all,
20%.
but it's been 20%, 80-20. Yeah, quite a while for 80-20.
Okay.
after we had decided this, I was understanding the county's only going with a 2% increase this year?
I don't think a decision yet or not, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's what I was following in the paper. And you've been on a freeze for 2 years?
Yeah, last year we got some, but yeah, before that we were on a freeze for 2 years, yeah.
Do we ever do a wage survey comparing to other communities?
Well, utility has access to that, and I think that is what, my guess, because I know that there were some wage increases, like scale increases. So I'm gonna guess that was based on information comparables.
That was based on comparables that were presented to us from the interested parties.
So are you talking about, we can do we have not done comparables. There is comparables, and then there's a whole wage study, which would be bringing somebody in for many thousands of dollars to study our rate. Comparables, you would take...
I would say comparables. I'm
Okay.
not talking about spending a lot of money on a
Right.
wage study. I'm talking about comparing to other communities, other municipal.
Right, and then you'd want basically apples to apples. So what is Dodge considered? A rural county, you got, or
I would
not
say
Dodge County,
cities to
city,
cities.
Juneau. So you'd have to have a comparable population, and probably more of a rural city in a rural versus a city that's closer to Milwaukee,
Well, absolutely.
right?
And benefits included.
And, yeah, then you'd have to also look at your benefit package, and certainly that could be done, it would take probably months, and we'd also have to agree, right? Who is going to determine the municipalities we're going to compare them to? I mean, is that personnel chair? Is that personnel committee? Is that a committee with city staff? I mean, there has to be, someone has to be the decider of which are the comparable municipalities, which are the apples to apples.
In my opinion, it would be the responsibility of the personnel committee to put together those numbers to present to us. Because you're the committee that came up with the first 4 to 5% recommendation. And then it came to, well, you and the utility committee, personnel committee together, came up with that recommendation, and then it came to finance, and now it's coming to council. Right? I mean, that was the
Right.
progression.
I've not heard in my years here that we've ever done a comparable of city staff. So yes, it can be done. I don't think I'm remiss in not doing that as a personnel chair, because in all the years I've heard about it, I've never heard that we've
I'm not
done
saying-
that.
I'm not making any accusations,
All right.
I'm making
Well-
more of a recommendation maybe.
Right, so.
But you're asking for a pretty substantial raise for the folks.
So I would say that, you know, in my dealings here, it's pretty much looked at as inflation and what the budget will absorb, what the city can absorb. And after being at the finance committee, it was clear that the city can absorb this 5%. So then I'd say, you know, we have to maintain staff, we have to keep them competitive. We don't want
do.
vacancies.
We do, but we don't have to jump over other communities. You know?
No, but it would take several months probably to gather. I would say you have to probably at least do 3 to 5 comparable municipalities.
Yeah,
Right?
I would think that would be public records, like ours is.
But first you have to decide which municipality of this
I don't think that would be that
population.
hard, Kay. I think, you know, Horicon, local communities, and,
I'd have to look at all their populations and where they're
well, you're not gonna
situated.
find one that's exactly the same as Juneau. You have to take a mixed bag,
Yeah.
throw them together and see what it is. I mean, for instance, I used to work at Kraft Foods. They took a survey of different industries around the area. They weren't all food companies, you know, they looked at John Deere, they looked at all kinds of different industries. And that's how they made their determination as to how much of a raise they were gonna give their folks. And that's what I'm saying, maybe we should look at in the future
So-
or whatever.
Yeah, because right now, we are at budget time,
Oh, I understand.
and there is no way that
I
this could
understand.
possibly be done before budget has to be
I
passed.
know, but I'm just saying, that's, when we're looking at a raise of this magnitude, which is a lot, and, you know, we're gonna get pushback from the community. And we have to have an answer for them. And a good answer would be to say, we looked at the other communities around here, we're in the ballpark,
So,
right?
and next year, I will, here, but next year, the person can do that. I'm saying it's not gonna happen before budget time. But then I think we also have to say, if the municipalities we look at, that the personnel chair committee chooses, is higher than what we would give, do we make a commitment to that?
You would have a better argument for that.
I just, you know, that would be the thing, right? We want to compare it both ways. And we want to be honest about if the municipalities got more, then we should be giving our staff more.
And that would make sense, because then you're talking about positions where our people could look, and the people that are hired for Juneau could look and say, hey, they're getting more, I'm gonna go there and work. And that would be incentive for them to go someplace else, right? So we would wanna match that. But if we got more, or if we're paying a way higher wage, I mean, then we're not being fair to the people of the city,
Because
is what I'm saying.
yeah, I mean, we have to start with where our wages start. I mean, you can't just say, what percentage did they get? I mean, we'd have to first see what clerk treasurers make in this, right? You gotta start with what their wage scale is.
I can give you kind of an idea. You know, starting here for, you know, deputy clerk compared to another municipality is quite lower in some other communities. And there's been a lot going through the clerks network with asking, you know, what type of percentages is your municipality looking at? And they've been ranging between like 5 and 8%. Now, if their governing body is actually adopting that is one thing, because we're all going through the same thing right now, but that is what is being mentioned. So it's something that I've seen often. I know every once in a while, they'll say, for populations of, let's say, 2,600, what do your benefits look like? Spreadsheets have been made. It's definitely something that you could do, work on, in the future. It'd be kind of hard to get exactly, every person, but I think with the 5%, we're definitely in that ballpark of what other communities are looking at, just from what I've been reading on the Clerks Network.
I don't know if it's a fair comparison to the private sector or not, because private sector,
Right,
Been
and
upon-
I'm not asking for a
Yeah.
comparison to the private sector,
Right.
but all I'm saying is, when we, and I'm not saying that I'm gonna vote for or against this, all I'm saying is that we have to justify to the people of the community why we're giving a substantial raise this year.
We'll do the cost of living. The information is in there, your packets. It's been printed off. Last year it was, 5.3%. You guys got 3% last year, so it was high last year. Now this year it's at 8.2%.
But do you
You're looking
think
at
that the
5?
utility users and the taxpayers of this community are receiving that, to be able to help support that?
That's
I think
not
that's the point you're
anything that I can
making, correct?
answer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that, that's definitely an argument for it, but I would like to see more support for it. I would like to see a comparison to other communities or something like that. Yeah.
My suggestion would be, every couple of years, you should be doing some due diligence to check into what other municipalities are paying, and you should do that. No question, right now, we're in an inflationary period. Everybody knows wages have gone way up, prices have gone way up. And, probably for this year, makes sense, you have to do something. But I would suggest that going forward, it's a very good idea to do a wage study, and you should do that frequently. Every year, maybe that's a lot, but I would say every 2 years or every 3 years, you ought to be doing that. So you know where you land.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be exactly the same, but you compare to Horicon, you compare to Watertown, you compare to Mayville, you compare to, everybody around you and see where you are. And it's a good idea, you're right, if you're on the low side, you recognize that you run the risk of losing people. If you're on the high side, you recognize that maybe you're overpaying and you should be more accountable to your taxpayers. But it's appropriate to do that. Right now, you're not in a position to do it as to this year at this point. And given the most rampant inflation in 40 years, probably does make sense to go up around 5%. But going forward, I think you should definitely do a wage study. I wouldn't compare to private employers, that is totally different. But I would compare to all the municipalities in this range.
Yeah. I just brought up my former employment as an example. I wasn't
Yeah.
saying let's compare them to private employees.
So that's what a lot of private employers do.
Yeah.
Kraft does that a whole bunch of. In my law firm, we periodically compare to where we are, because the state bar releases results of showing what the averages are for different things, and we use that. But no, you should always compare.
When we started planning, I did ask for a 0% property tax increase. We didn't make that. Now, I know the wages just play a part of that, but tell us where we're at on that, Megan, so everybody knows. I know it's in the binder, but
Right. So where we're at, if we levy the full amount, we're looking at about $14 increase on a $230,000 home. So I do have that listed in here. It is minimal. The mill rate was $10.60 last year. This year it's at $10.66. So I did clarify as well with speaking with the representative from the state. I know you guys, they were kind of talking about, maybe not levying the full amount and things like that. So I knew there was a reason behind that, and I did get in layman's terms today why we wouldn't want to levy that full amount. So if we don't use the full base amount of the full allowable limit, it will decrease next year. So the base levy will be lower next year and will be forever lower unless we go to referendum. So I did clarify that with her today. She asked the reasoning behind why we wouldn't want to levy the full amount that we potentially can, and I kind of explained the reasoning. You know, because we wanted a kind of a lower mill rate and things like that, and you know, she didn't see the full reason behind that. Yes, our mill rate increased minimally, a $14, you know, increase on that, you know, amount of the home is pretty minor. So, I clarified that. I found that out today, so that's a pretty significant impact. So you definitely wouldn't want next year to start lower than we are this year, because we're never going to be able to get that base back. So.
And if you follow the tax rates, it's generally the higher the city tax rate per populace. You usually find that, you know, compare our tax rate to Horacon's. Horacon's is like $8 or something. So you got less contributors towards your tax base, so naturally each taxpayer is paying a little bit more of the share. That's what it boils down. Kind of like utility rates too, you know. You can service a community with a wastewater treatment plant. The bigger the numbers, you know, the smaller the bill to each individual user.
I do want to mention too as well, so I've been getting numbers in. It looks like Dodgeland and Moraine Parks, they are not levying, or their tax rate won't be as much as last year. So that's a good thing. Obviously, we don't know what Dodge County is looking at yet. But I think overall tax-wise this year it's going to be minimal. I know for the city of Juneau it will be, but I can't verify that overall with all the taxing jurisdictions. So cannot predict the future. Sorry. But you should have the answers that you need here within the next couple of weeks, of course.
Any other discussion? I see none. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Brown.
Aye.
Morose.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Groton.
No.
Schuster.
All right.
Resolution 39, 2022 has passed.
Resolution 44, 2022, we generally have a revolving line of credit with a local financial establishment in the case of having an emergency for the city. We have never had to use this that I am aware of, but it is a precautionary measure, and Resolution 44, 2022 approve renewing revolving line of credit in the amount of $250,000. Whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed the line of credit required for short-term purposes as shown in Exhibit A, and whereas the Finance Committee recommends renewing the revolving line of credit with Farmers and Merchants Union Bank with terms in the amount of $250,000 for 1 year and an interest rate of 5.25% with no renewal fee. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 8th day of November, 2022. I move for passage of Resolution 44, 2022.
Motion by Brown, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schuster. Any further discussion? She said it's pretty much boilerplate, just an insurance policy that we have in case we ran into a jam.
Sad side is the interest rate jumped quite high this year compared to what we've had in the past, but
Pointing that out.
welcome to the world. So,
No further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Brown.
aye.
Schuster.
All right.
Evans.
Aye.
Groton.
Aye.
Morose.
Aye.
Resolution 4422 is passed.
In the process of doing our budgeting this year, Megan went and looked into our insurance policies and how they're being handled, what all is being covered. We did find some issues with it, and she went through the process and helped to rectify those problems with our insurance company, making sure that we're covering the right things, the right addresses, the right amounts, any additional properties so there was a verification. And during that process, there was some changes that were possible for us in the discussion we had at finance of what is wise for the city, what's the best thing, why would we do that, and this is the result of that conversation. Resolution 45, 2022 approves City of Juneau's 2023 insurance premium. Whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed and discussed all changes made to the EMC insurance policy as shown in Exhibit A. Whereas the Finance Committee recommends approving EMC's 2023 premiums with the following changes. Increasing the umbrella coverage to $2 million from $1 million with a premium increase of $2,757. Increasing the deductible for auto to $3,000 from $1,000 for a reduction in premium of $2,676. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 8th day of November 2022. I move for passage of Resolution 45, 2022.
Motion by Brown, second by Evans. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Groton,
Aye.
Morose,
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Resolution 45, 2022 is passed.
One of our last pieces of our budget, I shouldn't necessarily say last, but one of the pieces of our budget is our rates for anyone that we pay outside for services, and one of those rates is for our attorney rates. They have in the past come and asked for differences. It has come during the middle of the year, and we've said, no, you need to come to us at budget time, please, and request those changes because we've already budgeted. We need to stay within our budget. They did present to us some different numbers. This conversation had, and this resolution is a result of those conversations and what we're looking to propose. Resolution 46, 2022, approve increase for attorney rates. Whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed a request to raise the rates for the City Attorney Andrew Griggs. Whereas the Finance Committee recommends approving the rate increase to $175 per hour and a meeting pay increase to $80 per meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 8th day of November 2022. I move for passage of Resolution 46, 2022.
Motion by Brown,
Second.
second by Groton. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Brown,
Aye.
Groton,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Morose,
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Resolution 46, 2022 is passed. Anything else from Finance here?
I just want to remind everyone, there is a public hearing November 22nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. here. If you're not able to attend in person, if we can possibly make, I know I will not be present personally, but we'll be calling in for that meeting. So we need to approve our final budget at that point in time so it can be filed with the state.
I won't be here. And I'll be out of complete contact.
Are we
As long as we have a
allowed to,
quorum, we should be able.
are we allowed to do that by?
By phone?
Yeah, I thought for.
I think it needs to be
Yeah.
in-house.
So you're not gonna count, so you gentlemen plus
Jane.
Jane better be.
And
We
Jane
ran
can-
into that problem one year.
Jane can be
You have
here.
to physically be
And
here.
these three said they could make it as well, right?
You do need to be here, just make sure you have a quorum.
So,
I have a question. Why does it count for a quorum when on a regular meeting, but not for?
just because it's your annual budget, it's.
Right. The difference is being the budget meeting, the annual budget meeting.
What? Never mind, I won't be calling you. I will be present. I will be in upstate New York, so.
I remember that one year when I was in Dallas and you got in that car wreck. There was a lot of that stuff that surfaced during that and how important it was to have bodies in the seats here for that. Whatever. So anyway, gentlemen, make sure you don't get hurt or sick over that. We will pass the same message on to Jane. So
All right, moving on, personnel.
Personnel didn't meet, but last month I did share that we updated the travel, training, schooling, professional meeting policy, and you had that in your packet. So, and basically the gist of it is department heads have to budget for training for their staff and for the department head themselves. So we got rid of, you know, a lot of steps here about particular dollar amounts. There was a specific permission if you have to have a hotel room. And for the most part, trainings are state rate hotels. So it's up to department heads to adequately budget for training for their employees and themselves. So I will read the policy. Resolution 47, 2022, approved training authorization policy. Whereas the Personnel Committee has reviewed the need to update and adopt training authorization policy for City of Juneau employees, and whereas the Personnel Committee recommends approving this policy as shown in Exhibit A, now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accepts the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 8th day of November 2022. I would move for passage of Resolution 47, 2022.
Motion by Burrows,
Second.
second by Brown. Further discussion? No questions, no comments? Roll call vote, please.
Burrows,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Groton,
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Resolution 47, 2022 is passed. Anything else from personnel, Kate?
Nope.
Public safety, John.
We did not have a regular meeting. We had a short meeting before for a resolution for a Dodge County Humane Society contract. And also, do we have any update on the house on Fairfield? Apparently we do.
We do. In fact, I put together a memo, one of my associates I had researched. We sent another letter to, or had Chief Beal serve another letter on Devin Chados back on October 11th. She's no longer residing in the hotel or motel that she was living in. I think it looks like everybody's lost her whereabouts. Do you have any idea where she is? Nobody seems to know.
No, I had sent to your office contact for the daughter,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
And even the daughter isn't being responsive. So nothing beyond that.
No,
So what we do have to do is, I've outlined in this memo, but it's a procedure where we have to serve her with one more letter, and then we file, and you have an ordinance, it's ordinance 15.12, which then follows to Wisconsin statute section 823. And so essentially what you have to do is you have to, she gets 60 days notice, a receiver has to get appointed if she doesn't do anything in 60 days. And then once the receiver is appointed, then the receiver is authorized to move forward with the demolition of the building. Kind of a little bit more cumbersome process than some other municipalities. So another outgrowth of this is I'm going to recommend you revise your ordinance. But right now that's the ordinance that we have. So that's how we have to proceed. She's not being cooperative. You do have what I think seems like a good bid to tear down the property, $28,000. That includes everything. That bid, as I understand it, says is good for 6 months. So you should be safe with that bid. The only question in that bid was if there was going to be what there would be for charges of disconnections for utilities. And I think the person who provided that bid is here tonight, and he had that question. But I think we need to follow that procedure. The other thing is this Devin Chados has been terrible to deal with. At first she was responsive. She's completely disappeared. For a long time, long time, she was living in this hotel. Now she's gone. Nobody's saying where she lives. I suspect eventually she'll get in trouble with the law or something, so you'll find out where she is. Who knows when that'll happen. I do think the city should proceed forward under your statute filing the lawsuit, because the property has to get addressed and cleaned up. You also have a forfeiture procedure, but your forfeiture procedure while faster only allows you to fine her between $50 and $500 per day, but it doesn't address getting the property raised and cleaned up. Plus, she's going to be a collection problem. The other thing is, I do think, I understand she did get paid long before my involvement from her insurance, and so essentially it's conversion because, or theft, because she had an obligation to use those proceeds to take this down, and she's obviously just used those proceeds for her own living expenses.
It's our understanding that the insurance company was holding some money in escrow for cleanup. It was only $7,000 to $8,000.
I think like 7,200 if I recall.
Yeah. So that may be there, but the trouble is you're raising the property is $28,000, so.
But how do we get access to those funds?
Those, I believe, have probably been released to her. Well, go ahead.
From our understanding, when we've dealt with her insurance company and our own, once the demolition starts, you submit the portion of the bill to get refunded on that. They won't dispense those funds until the demolition is started and been completed. So she'd be responsible for her half, and then they pay up to that amount on what is owed. We have the same thing with our policy as well. So we have a portion of funds that's still in an escrow account, essentially waiting to be dispensed once demolition commences.
And that's fine. The one concern I would have is if there's only $7,200 there, there's going to be a shortfall of another $7,500 or so.
Yeah. So your plans are to take over the entire property, but if she doesn't agree to sell, where do they stand on that? This is a zero lot line property where they can't really proceed to rebuild without her signing her half over.
Right.
So where do we go from there? Where do they go from there?
And she also
I feel for you
currently owes
folks.
on
Yeah.
property taxes from this year. She owes past due property taxes as well as fines to the city as it already stands. She's got over $553 outstanding to the city in fines that she owes, and what, $3,900 in property taxes roughly previously owed, plus additional snow removal and grass removal fines that aren't even on the property taxes yet. And her land value is at $9,300.
Yeah.
So the city's already, you know, in the hole, almost $5,000 just from the get-go.
Right. And the trouble is, if you waited for the county to foreclose on that end of it, that's not going to happen anywhere near timely. So my suggestion is we go through this and get the property raised, and then see about getting the property back to the city. But you got to get it raised first.
It still puts these folks in a hard place because they want to take over the entire property and build a home.
Right.
Quite frankly, we want to be done with
We
this.
just want to be done.
We
just want to tear it down, and we weren't even gonna rebuild on it.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
We'll keep it as a lot. We'll assume her portion if it comes down to that, but not at the rates that it is right now. I mean,
Not
it
what
would be
she wanted to
negative.
sell it for.
Right. So,
It's a no-win situation for you guys then.
No, we
Right.
can't proceed with even demoing because he knows we can't start until there's hold harmless at zero lot line. So we've been waiting. We've been attending the meetings. His law firm contacted us the other day. We put them in touch with him, and we wanted to be here to answer any questions. He's got questions as well about
How that would
the
work.
utility disconnects and if it has to go back to the road or if it can be ended at the lot line, which does keep the value of the lot higher than taking it all the way back and keeps the cost of demolition down.
Well,
he's from a business called Jaws in
Yeah.
Asheville that take it down.
we do have city ordinance that after a year, those utilities are supposed to be abandoned to the main. So you're talking street opening permits and what have you, but I think we can get an extension or a waiver or an extension to be able to keep those utilities intact, because the last thing we want you doing is digging up the street and causing another rumble strip if the potential of another property being constructed on that lot, let's say within another 12 months. but you're gonna have to go ahead of the utility commission for that recommendation, and I will speak on your behalf as allowing that because of the hardship that you've gone through thus far here. Because the big thing is we have to have ordinances in place to protect our utilities from water seeping into our, we have enough infiltration and unwanted water into our sanitary sewers and what have you. And I'm sure nothing's been done with inside that house basement to keep any rains or anything going in there.
I guarantee not on her side, as far as we knew, it was still filled with water in her foundation.
Well, that may be a condition that the utility would allow you to keep your utilities intact as long as you had a licensed plumber to go in there and seal up make sure that there was no water infiltration and then the water was properly capped so that there could be no theft of water with the meters being removed and what have you.
The meters were removed, what, 3 days after the house
Yeah,
fire? So
they ripped them up.
That helped put the fire out.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I'll go to bat for you on utility level. They meet the first Monday of the month. You missed it by a day. It was yesterday, but I mean, I think you can approach them, and I think there's reason to be able to keep those utilities intact, see how we can see a potential taxable property and utility use on that property in the very near future. But we can't leave it go much more than, it's already been over a year now. That fire was in August, middle of August, so we're well past the year already. I would say that they'll probably have to put a deadline that something's gonna have to be done by like January 1 or July 1 or something like that the next year or something like that.
Well, it's all the legal process
And
dictates
what I'd
the
like
rest of the
from the
timeline.
city is just the authority to go ahead and file a lawsuit and proceed under both your Juneau ordinance 15.12 and then Wisconsin statutes 823 to follow that process to get
And
a
those would,
receiver appointed so we can get it torn down.
those would be assessable costs that could go back to her for the previous owner.
Right.
But
They would be. What I
If
can't
we-
guarantee you though is that I want you to be aware this could be a collection problem.
Right.
Second thing is if anybody does find out any more about the whereabouts of Devin Chados, that would be appreciated too. I don't know if that's going to happen, but for everybody to keep.
I guess
Keep
I'd
a
ask our
lookout.
police chief to do his due diligence to try and track her down too, I guess. So,
And he has been. She's a difficult person to track down, but keep doing that.
there's gotta be, daughter's gotta know where she is.
Mhm.
So I guess whatever
Right.
methods you can use, Dave, to make that happen, I appreciate it. Wish I could give you better news, but I would say.
We'll continue to be here and
Yeah.
I'll say as best as we can until this whole process, as long as communication stays open and
What else can we do?
Maybe I ask you to contact Lori tomorrow, make sure they're on the next utility agenda. With public appearances early in the meeting, we can get you in and get you out, so.
sure.
It'd be a request for delay of abandoning utility services to address.
330 South Fairfield Avenue.
We might as well do 328, make it
Yeah.
marketable to whoever comes up in the future, I mean.
Sure.
Can you repeat that once more for me? I got
Just appearances by,
Mandy Roop.
And Asher Rosenberg.
Is it Asher?
Asher,
Asher.
A-S-H-E-R.
Okay.
regarding delay of utility abandonment at the address.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
All right. Sorry can't be more help, but.
Well, and also we appreciate your cooperation in all this. It'd be much easier if we had cooperation on the other side.
Mhm.
But they've been extremely cooperative.
Now, we don't have your resolution on our agenda to act upon it, on what you want to do.
No, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll start the process now.
Okay.
But,
Did that go on the public hearing?
I don't know.
Could it?
Could it go on, I'm asking, could it go on the public hearing agenda?
I,
Yeah.
sure.
You can do other business under
Right.
the public hearing.
Do you need a resolution if it's ordinance?
We're just enforcing your ordinance and proceeding with a lawsuit under your ordinance. And then the ordinance then cites the Wisconsin statute 8/23. And so we're just following that procedure that's allowed under your ordinance anyway.
Yeah, I don't think a
So
resolution would be needed.
we're just enforcing your ordinance. In the long run, what we'd like to do is we'd like to revise your ordinance because the procedure under your ordinance isn't as good as other procedures that we could have. But we're stuck with the ordinance you currently have. We have to proceed under that.
But my point being, we don't have that on agenda tonight to approve that, so can we put that in our budget hearing agenda on other business, to at least have official?
I would do to have official action so that I can proceed with the lawsuit on that.
Because there's an expenditure that we're gonna have to pay.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna
That's
foot
the
the
downside.
expense until such time.
But if you don't do anything, this lady I don't think is gonna do anything. You know, initially she was cooperative, but I don't believe she will be.
Okay, Andy, can you send me that info exactly on, you know, what the resolution should look like?
Sure.
So I can, you know, have something to base the creation of that.
Sure. So if I have a meeting tomorrow morning, but if I email that to you tomorrow afternoon, is that fine?
Plenty time. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else you want to add, folks?
Anything else, or?
I got a question for you. So in that resolution, if you guys put this lawsuit forward and everything else, will the city end up owning her portion of the property? Is that how that will work in the long run?
We don't foreclose on property.
Right. It'll force the tear down of the property is what this lawsuit would do. Eventually, if she doesn't pay her taxes and do other things, she could lose the property. But initially, all this would cover is the raising of the building.
So then, like in my situation, as the demo contractor, do I get paid from Juno, or how would we get?
Probably going to end up being paid from both.
Okay.
And be ending up some being paid by her insurance,
Okay.
and unfortunately some possibly being paid by the city of Juneau.
Okay.
City of Juneau then obtaining a judgment against her, but I'm warning the city of Juneau that I have some collection concerns. I think that you could argue that you could get a non-dischargeable judgment against her because if it turns out that she's converted some insurance proceeds, even if she filed bankruptcy, she wouldn't be able to discharge her judgment. But that's further down the road. But I think initially it would have to be probably money from her insurance proceeds and then some from the city.
Okay, perfect.
How old is this party we're dealing with?
How old is this woman?
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't met her in person, I've just talked to her on the phone.
Is she working age or?
Oh, she's an adult.
She is, but she has disabilities.
Right.
Well, God, we ought to be able to track her that way, can't we? Or is that
Yeah, she
privacy?
doesn't receive Social Security, she doesn't work, so.
Yeah. Oh, she definitely has some disabilities of some kind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Guess we'll go forward that and go from there, I guess, so.
Perfect.
First Monday in December then. We'll see you down at the utility office. That's down by the city park. We don't meet here. You know where our utility office is?
Sure.
Okay.
And then are you guys gonna vote on a resolution at the finance one on the 22nd? Is that when you're adding that
That's our
resolution?
plan.
Yeah.
The 22nd of
The
this
budget?
month. Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything else in public safety, John?
Oh, I just got the resolution. I mean, we had a short meeting, so we didn't have everything. So I got resolution 48, 2022. Resolution to approve Dodge County Humane Society contract 2023. Whereas the Public Safety Committee has reviewed the renewal of the Dodge County Humane Society Inc. contract, and whereas the Public Safety Committee has reviewed the option of paying for 10 domestic dog strays for $2,500 plus $350 per dog for additional dogs over 10. And whereas with a $75 pickup charge during normal business hours, $150 after hours. And whereas the Public Safety Committee recommends the attached contract identified Exhibit A to be approved. Now therefore be resolved that the Common Council of the City of Juneau accept the aforementioned recommendation passed by the Common Council of the City of Juneau this 8th day of November 2022. I move for passage of Resolution 48, 2022.
Second.
Motion by Schuster, second by Evans.
It's just a contract we do every year, Community Society, so.
Any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Schuster,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Groton,
Aye.
Merle.
Aye.
Resolution 48, 2022 is passed. Public Works.
We did not meet.
Scott, you got anything to add?
Well, you pretty much covered street construction projects, so
Got the plows all ready to go?
50%. It's been too nice up to think about that.
Changes quickly.
Okay, moving on, cable TV. Jana's not here.
I did attend the meeting
Yes, I'm trying to think too. what we
as
done.
as a public person. But basically, we talked about recording ideas, we went over the budget for cable TV. It was a pretty short meeting, and that's about it.
Any questions for Kay? Moving on, CDA, we did not meet. Recreation Committee, we did not meet.
We didn't meet.
Utility Commission, Richard?
The Utility Commission, of course, had 2 meetings since our last council meeting. We always seem to have.
At least
We're the leaders. Anyways, there was a special meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but at that meeting, they approved a wage increase for the electric superintendent and the journeyman, the electric journeyman, and that wage increase amounted to a 7.5% wage increase effective the first of the year, with no cost of living increase. And then we had a meeting yesterday, and of course there's not minutes out for those yet, but I'm not a very good note taker, but I can give you a couple highlights. We approved the electric budget for 2023. We approved community contributions, $700 to the police youth program, $900 to Shop with Cops, and $900 to the Dodge City Food Pantry. We approved up to $1,000 for the cost of installing outlets to the streetlight poles downtown. Apparently they're going to put Christmas trees next to the poles or something. So we approved donating up to $1,000 for the cost of running the electrical down the poles. So we'll see how that goes. Nick, during his report, pointed out some of the damage done to some of the electrical boxes and handholds during the sidewalk installation on Highland Street project, something the mayor touched on before. And he's going to be billing MSA for the damages. Peter reported that Soper should have the water and sewer laterals done on Oak Street by Thursday, which is tomorrow. No, 2 days.
2 days.
2 days, yeah. When you're retired, it all runs together. And the commission approved a 7.5% wage hike for all electrical department positions. And we went in closed session, came out and approved awarding Alex Schmoody with the wastewater treatment plant lead operator position. And that's what I have for highlights. If you have anything to add.
If you don't pay your bills, disconnects do happen, and it does cost to reconnect them. We had 18 disconnects that were done this past month. They are all back on, I believe, all but one. And it does cost you an extra fee to have them reconnected. And continue to pay your bills, please. Services are not free. The utility still has bills to pay, and we know that there's a moratorium that comes, but we would ask you not to use that as a opportunity for you to not pay your bills. You use the services, please be fiscally responsible.
I'm going to throw the wrench in the works because I thought about it after our meeting last night. That wage hike was contingent upon not adding another person to the utility ranks. How did we get carte blanche there? How did we pick up everything?
That's
That-
what was in the budget.
Well, that was in the budget, but that wasn't the recommendation from that personnel meeting from utility or from the, it was complete utility commission. If I remember right, the wage was okayed contingent upon not adding a third person to
He
the
was not
ranks.
there for that meeting, and you are correct.
Okay, I'm just thinking, sometimes I got so many meetings in 1 week, sometimes the pieces come together after I leave the meeting, so, you know, that's what I thought it was, Cheryl, so. So maybe that has to be addressed, because that was the consensus of the group that night, correct? We go with that, but we're not adding a third guy, and now all of a sudden we got a budget that includes the third guy plus the wage increase, so.
The third guy and all positions.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But the all positions, we don't have anybody in those and not looking to fill them other than the apprentice is what he's asked for.
Right.
And the present journeyman that's there now. I'm just, like I said, it kind of came to light after the fact. I thought, oh, wait a minute. We approved the budget that we talked at length on in regards to the wages and what the going rate was for these positions. Kind of agreed that we'd meet them halfway on adjusting that wage so that we're not at the high end, like Richard said earlier, we're not at the low end. We're kind of in the middle with the 7.5%. Does not include the cost of living 5%. But part of it was the third position was adamantly turned down. Okay,
I don't think it says that.
excuse me?
I'm not sure if that's stated in minutes.
Well, it should have been.
So that would need to be clear.
My memory might be slow, but usually it's pretty accurate. Maybe that's something that's got to be sent back to utility, so. I guess just put it in your notes. So.
In the minutes for the special meeting, it only talks about the electric superintendent and the journeyman. Those were the two wages that were increased, right?
Yeah, because we weren't adding a third one.
So then this that we did yesterday encompassed it all, everyone else in the electrical department.
Yeah, and added a position.
When we finalize the budget.
Yep. Okay, bringing up the point. Anything else, Richard, Cheryl? Okay. Moving on to the old business night.
Got one question that, the chicken ordinance, is that going anywhere? It was a plan commission, right? Is that going anywhere? Is that done or?
Andrew, you had the last draft of penalties or forfeitures or, you remember
Last-
seeing that?
The last I knew is that we were gonna push that off until after January 1st.
Right.
Correct? Yep,
Right,
that's
you're gonna push
what
it
I
off
was.
to after the
March,
first, but then I was okay with what you were suggesting for forfeitures.
I thought you said,
But they're a little on the low side, I mean.
no, you gotta beef them up a little bit, we thought we were, okay. All right,
If we need to beef them up, then we,
Okay.
your suggestion,
Sure,
so that we can.
I would beef them up a little bit, I'll get back.
Just kind of put off in spring then, is that what you're saying?
well, I thought that's what we agreed to, like after March, wasn't it? Or like this, who wants to be inspecting chicken coops in the dead
In the
of
winter
winter?
time, right. Okay.
I don't think you can buy chickens in winter.
No, springtime.
I've been doing a little bit of thinking about the chickens.
You clucker.
And I was thinking that we might, if you're going to go ahead with this, you might want to have your pilot program run through the winter, through a whole winter, to see how it works.
We were talking about spring to spring, so.
So
it would be a year.
April to
Yeah.
April or something, yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then I won't have to think about it
I think they should run through two winters. That would be my suggestion.
That'll give Kay some time to put her coop together and
Yeah.
get it run all staked
Better
out.
believe it.
Or something.
You already got it built in the garage.
Waiting,
to come out.
waiting.
anymore. I heard all the coops are gonna be down,
I can't help it.
I heard all the coops are gonna be
This
down
is
near the
okay.
mayor's house.
Yeah, sound like two of them were for sure. Really gotta keep the dog on a leash now. Any other questions? Any new business? We've got professional bartender's license for Kimberly Pickard. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
And then also a regular bartender license which expires June 30th, 2023 for Kimberly Pickard. Is there a recommendation or approval for that?
So moved.
Motion by Schuster,
Second.
second by Grattan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? With no further business?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion by Schuster, second by Morose to adjourn. All in
Get
favor?
back to.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Yeah.
Thank you.